Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on creating an integrated and sustainable wellness strategy. Thank you all for joining. We're due to have quite a few people join this webinar, so thank you so much to everyone who is dialing into this. My name is Mehannam. I'm the moderator for today's webinar and I am the campaign manager for the Business in the Community's Workwell campaign. And with me, I have today Casson from Right Management, who is an organisational consultant and workplace wellness director. Greg has extensive experience of both the EAP and Wellbeing marketplace, having previously supported multinational corporates, the public sector and SME clients with their employee offerings and helping them to define their wellness strategy. Over the last 2.5 years, Greg has been responsible for the implementation of one of the largest corporate wellbeing projects in Europe, which supports 120,000 employees. He's a subject matter expert on using wellness as a driver of employee engagement. So any questions on linking employee engagement and wellness strategies, then do ask at the end of this webinar. He's also part of our practitioner group on the Workwell campaign and plays a really active role within that. So we are delighted to welcome Greg. And I'm going to hand over to you now.
Thank you very much, Grace, and welcome everyone. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear. Thanks ever so much for joining us today. The session today is going to focus on defining why it's critical to change our approach to health and wellbeing in the workplace. We're going to talk about the 5 fundamental pillars that underpin a successful health management strategy. And then we'll be talking about sharing best practice and helping you to create an integrated and sustainable wellbeing strategy. Wellbeing for me is really no longer about just one-off health days. And I firmly believe this approach still has a place in the workplace, but organisations need to become more strategic in their approach if they are to truly make a difference. I think previously wellbeing was viewed by many organisations as a nice to have, whereas now with pressure on staff to achieve more and sometimes with less or little resource, the well-being of our employees has really never been more critical. And organisations also need to understand and recognise their responsibility in improving the health of their workforce and therefore the impact that this can also have on the local community. So I think for us all, corporate and social responsibility really does matter. I'll also be discussing Right Management's extensive experience of supporting organisations with their wellbeing strategies and share with you the 5 fundamental pillars that I think underpin a successful health management strategy and the best practice that we at Right Management have identified. I guess the message of today really is that the inescapable pressure to do more with less through the recession has awakened employers to the true power of human potential. With the right people in the right place at the right time, organisations really can achieve all that they did before and more. These new pressures are creating a scenario where the only way to adapt, evolve and rebuild will be through the determination of human spirit. And understanding how to unleash this spirit, the passion and the potential is not a one-size-fits-all approach, and we will require employees to engage with their people. We at Right Management and Manpower firmly believe that business is now entering what we call the human age. So no organisation will be successful in a globally competitive world with anything but healthy and productive people. I think we can probably all agree to that. And employers must create environments that encourage their employees to stay well, in addition to taking care of them when they're sick. Developing a culture of health must become a high priority for the boardroom, driven from the top and sustained by continual follow-up. The way we work and the way we do business is definitely changing. We acknowledge that the people on this call today might be facing major change and reform within your own organisation, and this will be creating numerous challenges for you, not least of which will be maintaining employee engagement and productivity. My session today is aimed at leaders, managers and practitioners, and to begin with I'd like to share with you our thought leadership and research into the world of work trends. Today the common denominator is people. As employers of people, we all have the opportunity to create environments that encourage individuals to stay well in addition to taking care of them when they're sick. And individuals today, more than ever, need to be inspired to take on self-leadership for their own health and well-being and to seek out lifestyles, products and services that will help them maintain it. So by entering this human age, we see a number of fundamental shifts. From capitalism to talentism, talent being the new it. from talent glut to talent shortage, from a job for life to maybe 10 to 14 jobs by the time a person reaches the age of 38, from works for an organisation to works with an organisation, from size matters to agility matters, from higher power to hiring passion, and command and control to flexible frameworks. In the past, for organisations to move ahead and grow, they needed access to capital. And as this process evolves, we will see talent and human potential itself replace available capital as a new dominant resource. Therefore, capitalism is evolving into talentism. And the arrival of the human age will have a number of profound consequences on the world of work. Skilled individuals, increasingly in short supply, will dictate their terms to employers of how and where they work. They will naturally gravitate to employers who care about their people, have the best work environments, unlock the passion of people, and empathy and intellectual curiosity will sit at the heart of what it means to be human and employed. So what about now? Well, 80% of healthcare costs we know are driven by 20% of an organisation. 75% of healthcare costs are to treat diseases that are a result of unhealthy behaviours. And over 100 billion could be saved through increased productivity by reducing working age ill health. Health, safety, occupational health and health screening and all forms of preventative healthcare continue to be important and form part of an integrated holistic approach to workplace wellness. We now recognise that there are other factors that determine workplace wellness, and we'll come on to this a little bit later in my conversation today, but things like culture, employee engagement, environment and leadership. It's time to begin thinking differently about healthcare and to change the organisational and individual conversation around health, to move away from viewing health as merely the absence of sickness and to embrace the concept of health management as care for both wellness and sickness. So what's next? We need to redefine health. Waiting for people to get sick and then working with them to make them better is a failed healthcare strategy. Our goal is to change the corporate conversation around health. From health as the absence of disease to health and vitality and energy. From only caring for the sick to enabling healthy people to stay healthy. From the cost of healthcare to the total value of health. From individual participation to population engagement. And from behaviour change to a culture of health, understanding the risk and then working with individuals to improve elements or lifestyle choices and behaviours. Long working hours and stress have become one of the great inflictions of life in the modern world, and overwork, stress, burnout are all contributing to an explosion of lifestyle illnesses. And whilst technology was supposed to make our lives a little easier, certainly for me, we seem to be making an even greater pressure on ourselves and having less time for the rest of our lives. Add to the mix major change, risk of job loss, increasing demands for greater productivity, with fewer resources, and it's really not surprising that we see an increase in stress-related absence and mental illness. Health and well-being are our most precious and natural assets, and it's important that workplace wellness programs also cover nutrition, exercise, sleeping and work-life balance, things that are critical for success at work, as well as personal contentment. As we've heard, resilience, agility, flexibility are all increasingly important in the fast-paced and demanding workplace. Building a personal resilience will be a critical skill for individuals to acquire in order to cope better and perform at optimum levels. It's been proven that there is a significant correlation between leadership and employee engagement. Organisations with effective leadership have more than twice the number of engaged employees as those without effective leadership. So although many of you on the call today may perceive yourselves as working differently to other organisations or view yourselves differently, the fundamental drivers behind the wellbeing agenda are likely to match those seen from other large organisations. You'll be wanting to improve productivity, you'll be wanting to improve motivation, improving employee wellbeing, implementing stress management policies, reducing sickness absence, and meeting legislative requirements. Workplace health has clearly progressed beyond the short term and quick fix into a complex, tactical and strategic need with the opportunity for multiple measurements and key performance indicators. So we know that if individuals are to make a sustainable behaviour change, that they really must be in an environment that supports that change. Despite all the psychological evidence that you cannot put a changed person back into an unchanged environment, behaviour change professionals persist in focusing only on the person and the problem and overlook the place where the problem is happening. Effective and sustainable behaviour change efforts must encompass the overall culture and conditions of the workplace. We see 5 fundamental pillars or steps that are necessary to design, build, implement, measure and sustain an effective wellbeing strategy. And it's important that employee wellbeing becomes embedded in everything that organisation does. It needs to become part of the DNA. Vision and engagement starts from the top. Any strategy to improve employee health status must have the support from senior management in any organisation, public or private sector, and also unions must work together to define a clear vision of a healthy and productive workplace and workforce. For businesses, that means strategic leaders must connect the vision to the organisation's business plan and share that vision, including the evidence and actions that support it, with everyone in the workforce. Health and wellness cannot be addressed in isolation from all other factors that make up the profile of a healthy and productive work site or workforce. This BITC model is holistic. It sets out measures that address physical and psychological well-being, organisational engagement and organisational factors. As I was saying earlier, health promotion used to focus on the past in individual improvement, but must now look to address the environment, cultural influences, values, peer support, specialist support systems and services such as counselling and occupational health. A truly interlinked approach is required where suppliers and support systems work towards a common strategy. As is often the case, the HR teams are responsible for health benefits, job skills, compensation, motivation, recruitment, talent management and so on. And this is a critical stakeholder group in aligning all the policies and procedures so that they encourage employees to stay fit and healthy and provide clear guidance and support in sickness and in ill health. In an increasingly fast-paced and changing work environment, it's important to recognise that productivity happens when people who have the right skills for their job are healthy enough to perform, are well managed and rewarded for doing great work. Many organisations have external health partners and rely on these for advice and analysis. And whilst this is helpful, the internal environment of the workplace is what employees experience every day. So good management practices, underpinned by clear communication and regular health-related initiatives, are essential in helping embed the culture and employees see and feel the organisation's commitment to supporting their well-being. In our experience, enlisting the help of wellbeing champions makes a major difference to sustaining a culture of wellbeing. Positive reinforcement, sharing successes and proactively raising awareness of what support is available to employees. The third step in developing a wellness strategy is to recognise and address any risk factors that may be present. One way of achieving this is to invite employees to complete a form of health assessment, typically via a questionnaire. This allows the individual to understand their own health status and puts them in charge of improving or maintaining their own health and well-being. Many employers also provide follow-up to the assessment from health coaches or internally via occupational health teams. The setting of incentives for leaders and managers is hugely important for the overall success of your wellbeing strategy. If we consider that many staff surveys are often given a percentage uptake target to ensure employee feedback is representative of the organisation as a whole, then why should we view the health of your workforce any differently? All of the results are collated within any management information, perhaps from a risk assessment, and can then all be used to drive the strategy for your workforce, so that it isn't a one-size-fits-all project, but a very unique strategy for your people. And this is a crucial point to pick up on. Our experience shows that when a wellbeing strategy is viewed as off-the-shelf, the buy-in from employees can be missed. When it is viewed as bespoke and communicated as such, a culture of health is easier to embed itself. To assist with culture change, managers and leaders should really be looking to actively work with pre-identified health champions to ensure that the action planning around the MI is aligned to the needs of the workforce. Getting ideas and buy-in from your employees creates a feeling of a caring employer and can significantly reduce the risk of your action planning being viewed as just another short-term management initiative. Transparency of the MI coupled with open dialogue with employees to build your action plan really does start you off on the right foot and allows for longevity of the program. Measurement really is the key to any success, and if you're going to do something to support staff, and most organisations I think would want to do this, it is far better to do something that is really going to make a difference and ensure that time, resource and even money is targeted at the high-risk areas identified in your data sets. Not only is wellbeing about proactively supporting your staff, it's also about ensuring that any resources, time and effort give the maximum return on their investment. A really crucial element of any wellbeing strategy is the communication back to your organisation of improvements that have been seen. Such a simple yet often missed opportunity is to inform your staff why your strategy looks the way it does. The "you say we did" approach of "here are the organisation's results and here's what we're doing to support you" has been seen to have a huge impact on employee engagement and really helps to embed the wellbeing strategy and make it sustainable. To show you what sort of impacts a clearly defined wellbeing strategy can have, look at this sort of data from a public sector client. Having analysed their risk data from a health risk assessment, this organisation has focused their strategy on the top risk areas for their site and their site only. These are the categories furthest to the right on this chart. By addressing these risk areas, the client is utilising their time and resources to the greatest effect and can communicate this back to staff why they have chosen the strategy they have. The improvements can clearly be seen in the chart below, which was taken a year later with better reported scores in activity, stress, nutrition, weight, life load and sleep. What they would need to do next is to look at the data again to identify what their next focus should be so that it truly becomes a fluid strategy and not a project set in stone. What is significant though is that this particular client has ensured that their strategy is communicated back to its employees and that a message for supporting all staff is conveyed, and this has had a huge impact on employee engagement during the same period. Disengaged employees are less likely to expend discretionary effort in carrying out their work tasks, whilst engaged employees are more likely to stay with an organisation and are more likely to perform effectively. The client themselves would probably say that they aren't where they want to be yet and that engagement is still below expectation, but their wellbeing strategy and communication is driving this shift and reversing a trend in difficult working conditions. So we'd like to take this opportunity to share with you what we've been doing in this important area. Right Management has been delivering health and wellbeing programs for over 25 years through its EAP business, Right Core Care, and supporting over 500,000 eligible employees. Usually in partnership with our customers, we have continued to evolve and develop new solutions, and we've created a unique strategic consulting service which enables organisations to identify, understand and tackle the underlying causes affecting employee health and performance. Based on the biopsychosocial model, which I'm sure is familiar to most of you, the construct is that biological, psychological and social factors all play a significant role in human functioning in the context of illness or disease. An example is that depression by itself might not cause liver problems, but a depressed person may be more likely to have alcohol problems and therefore liver damage. Within our online health risk assessment, we also ask questions that are proven drivers of engagement and taken from within our own validated engagement survey tool. The aim is to work with key stakeholders to measure and benchmark using an online health risk assessment, employee survey data, HR data sets, and to assist business leaders and managers to target follow-up where needed. We believe that one of the first phases of any worksite wellness program is to offer health risk appraisal to all employees so that people know their risk factors, and this way we create self-leaders who take personal responsibility for their health. Until now, by and large, the medical community has invested nearly all of its time and resources attempting to slow down the movement to the right-hand side of this continuum. The bottom line is that most people want to be on the arrow pointing towards wellness. We want to work with employers who care about those who are ill and provide support, work adjustments, etc., but also want to target the high-risk population who do not have an illness and focus on keeping them well. It's very exciting to be seeing at last the words wellbeing and engagement and productivity linked all together and no longer considered to be separate issues or strategies. We've already seen from our case studies that engagement and health promotion are connected. We also know from our employee engagement studies that high-performing workplaces are usually those where employee engagement is high. In fact, M&S usually have KPIs and bonuses linked to employee engagement, such as their belief that well people who are well managed equals a well organisation. And for Marks and Spencer's, a well organisation is a profitable organisation, and that's good for the community as they can hire more people, so it really is a win-win situation. We know too that 75% of people leave their manager, not their employer, so good management practices are also linked to engagement and management styles. This BITC model is very useful in setting out the clear steps. You can access this and lots of useful information from their website, and we'll give you those details at the end of the session today. We keep it simple. The cost of doing nothing is more than the cost of doing something. Changing the environments in which we live and work in order to reduce risk factors should be much easier and cost-effective than battling life-threatening illnesses, and it would avoid a tremendous amount of pain and suffering. The business case is compelling. The workforce is getting older, the cost of healthcare is increasing, the explosion of lifestyle diseases can be slowed down, and employers will see the benefit in less absenteeism, less time lost while at work, presenteeism, reduced death in service, and chronic illness, and so the list goes on. So, experience has led me to summarise the key steps in making wellness work as the 6 M's. You must have management buy-in before you embark upon building a strategy. Without it, you risk failing before you have started. But I must stress, doing something is always better than doing nothing. But doing it with management support will help make it successful. Measuring employees and looking at your site or organisation data means that your strategy is relevant and more likely to see success. Without measurement, you will simply be guessing and your strategy will not be truly strategic. It is such an easy element to forget, but ensure that you message your activity to your staff so that your strategy is clear and obvious to them. This helps to ensure that your employees feel they work for an organisation that has their well-being at heart and that it isn't an off-the-shelf project. Using well-being as a driver of organisational engagement really does work. Maximising the value of contracts and contacts also ensures that as an organisation you're getting value for money from each of your suppliers that are working with you so that they're truly working together to support and drive your initiatives. If utilisation of a supplier's service is low, think about how they can better support your staff by using the management information obtained within your wellbeing data. Without motivation and momentum, you run the risk of wellbeing becoming viewed as just a once-a-year event. Also, make sure that as an organisation you measure again. Make sure that any data you get from the second round of measuring is really validating the success of any programs you put in place, so you can understand the return on the investment. So, turning finally to return on investment. We absolutely understand that at the present time, organisations are trying to save money. Right management, more than most, sees the impact of the economic crisis every day as we work with thousands of individuals who have been made redundant and thousands more who contact our EAP and counselling services due to the risk of losing their job. Increasing debt, relationship problems and mental health are all other issues that we come across. The total cost of healthcare to an organisation and to the individual is determined by the flow of low risk to high risk. High risk is a very short distance from disease to high cost. So from my experience, there are 4 main benefits of a clearly defined and strategic wellbeing strategy. Number 1, the organisation benefits by having a clear strategy that seeks to target the health risks reported as being the greatest and most immediate need. This not only supports those that need it, but also seeks to keep your healthy employees well. The impact on absence, retention and productivity can be monitored with clear return on investment. A wellbeing strategy that is properly communicated to employees can also be a driver of organisational engagement and to help position you as an employer of choice. An engaged, motivated workforce with strong mental resilience can be achieved if a culture of wellbeing is consistent throughout your organisation. The impact on productivity has been measured and shown to improve by those employees that make positive lifestyle changes and improve their wellbeing scores. Not only is this an increase in productivity driven by the reduction in absence, but also by more productive employees who are in work, or to put it another way, a reduction in presenteeism. All of which, during an economic turndown, drives talent retention, helps to keep employees and leaders motivated, improves communication across the organisation, shapes values and objectives aligned to people, and demonstrates corporate commitment to employee well-being and corporate social responsibility. So what have other organisations reported when measuring their return on investment? Well, Unilever conducted a study in the UK, which was published in the American Journal of Health Promotion, estimating that the return on investment for their employee wellbeing programmes is in the region of £3.49 every £1 invested. British Airways reports a 2.3 to 1 ratio for their wellbeing strategy, and Centrica saw a reduction in staff turnover from 14.6% to 8.8%, resulting in savings of £41 million per annum. The public sector organisation also saw absence reduce in 21 of the 22 sites they ran programmes within, and by up to 50% in some cases. And a few more sources of inspiration for you. As we're treating this session today as an opportunity to share best practice, there really are many sources for help that I've listed for you. The slides are going to be available to download later, and I certainly recommend that you look at as many of these as possible. Certainly the Business in the Community website and our own website, Right Management, as well. Right, thank you for your time and attention this afternoon. I truly hope that you've found some of the points we've gone through interesting, giving you some new perspectives and new food for thought. And we'd certainly like to open the floor up now to any questions that you may have for the remaining sort of 10 minutes or so of this call. So if there are any questions, please feel free to fire away.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? You can either type them in or click the hand up icon on the webinar. I've got a quick question, Greg, while we're just waiting. Do you have any examples of companies measuring the impact of their wellness programs, measuring what the impact their wellness programs have had on engagement and productivity?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got numerous examples. I think the thing around engagement, first of all, is that it is very much a measurement that is of the moment. What I mean by that is how a person feels about their employer, how they feel about their pride of working for the organisation, their commitment, whether they be an advocate of working for the organisation. All that can change really very quickly, and that can actually change almost on a daily basis sometimes, particularly if bad news has just been delivered. So long term, when we look at health, that tends to give us a better overview, but we do need to be mindful of the fact that engagement can really be a measurement of that particular moment in time. So companies that are actively promoting well-being within their organisation and crucially communicating that back to staff as to why their strategy looks the way it does, are definitely seeing better than average scores within their engagement results. Our data indicates that those organisations that have a wellbeing strategy that is clearly defined and are presenting it back to their staff can have an engagement score typically in excess of 50% more than an organisation that doesn't respond or report that data and findings back. So I think the evidence is really clear that those organisations that have a wellbeing strategy are using it to drive engagement, and even more to get super engagement if you're communicating it back to your staff as to why your strategy looks the way it does. So yeah, there are numerous examples, both within the corporate and the public sector as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Does anybody have any questions that they want to type in or ask? Hi, Christine. We're just about to unmute you. Christine, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. Yes. This is Christine Newman from CSI Europe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Because I have a question regarding this online health risk assessment tool. Is it like a survey for employees, or is there a kind of reference to a tool that already exists, or can you give more details on this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what we've
You were
done...
talking.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So what we've done at Right Management is choose one of the best of breed suppliers within the marketplace for our health risk assessment. And what we've done is then tie that into the Right Management data set and questions which look around employee engagement. So we've taken a health risk assessment, best of breed, and have built onto it. So the particular example today, the particular example I've gone through today that looks at both health, engagement and organisational factors is something that Right Management have pulled together with the support of a technology provider. So we've put that together on our own. Obviously there are numerous health risk assessments that are out within the marketplace. The differentiator with what we're looking at, and this links in quite closely to BITC, is that we're looking at measures of engagement as well as being a really crucial element to assess.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Does anybody else have any other questions that they want to ask? Right, we've got one here that's been written on. What is your opinion, Greg, on the difference between an engaged population which participate and an engaged population which don't necessarily participate, or in fact is there such a thing? And that's from Danielle Broadhurst.
Danny, hello. Thanks for the question. As far as we're concerned at Right Management, we view engagement as being how a person feels about working for the organisation. So their pride, whether they are committed to working for the organisation, whether they would be an advocate of working for that organisation as well. So the term engagement that we use is very much based around how a person feels, as opposed to how the word engagement might be used by other organisations sometimes, which is how many people are involved in the programme. So I view the two very, very differently. I would view it as uptake would be one area that you're sort of mentioning here, and then what we would class as organisational engagement. So is there such a thing as an engaged population that participate and an engaged population that don't participate? I think you can have an engaged population who are committed to wellbeing but simply don't want to get involved, and I think that's where the longevity of a programme really comes into its own. I really believe that an organisation that continues to try to engage the people that aren't interested in wellbeing really need to continue to try to do so, and at some point the more than likely get those disengaged people involved in the programme. And popularity and success breeds more success. The longer a wellbeing programme is embedded within the organisation, so it's easier to pick up those people that typically weren't first involved.
Thanks, Greg. And we just had a comment back from Danielle saying she agrees, and thank you. So thanks for that, Danielle. Another question here for you. What was the actual participation level in the public sector client mentioned? What was the ROI?
Oh, good question. I can't share any specific company sort of details and names with you. But suffice to say, you're looking at a participation rate in excess of probably 51% for engagement within the programme or participation within the programme. Actual online completions in the region of about 40 to 41%. So actually, if we look at a conversion rate of people who attend maybe a launch event, if we say that uptake figure is about 51%, and of that 51%, we've achieved a 41% turnaround. That's certainly quite a high participation rate. In terms of ROI, with this particular client that we're working with, we're actually going through a second phase of data. Remember, within my presentation, I said how important it is to measure and then measure again, typically after a 12 to 18 month period. We're starting to get that return on investment coming through now. Certainly seeing a change within engagement scores, certainly seeing an awareness of medical conditions that didn't exist previously. So I'll be in a much better position to give you some real hard evidence on ROI at the end of that period, which will probably be around sort of April to May of next year. But typically, I think the ROI that I've gone through with the likes of sort of Centrica and British Airways, who run their own programs, I think is fairly typical of what can be achieved with a well-defined and strategic wellbeing strategy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Greg. Does anybody else have any final questions that they want to ask? No? Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Greg. That was absolutely, that was extremely interesting. We're really grateful for you to come here today.
Pleasure.
Just a final thing, the next event on our peer learning programme is our Meet the Bupa Workwell Award finalists, which is on the 26th of January. So do book your places on that event to hear from Cooper Parry, National Grid, EDF Energy and Deloitte. And there's a link at the bottom of the slide there, or you can just email myself and Tess. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you found that interesting. Many thanks.